Hey, welcome back to the Burn. I am Ryan Van Deaver, and we are presented to you by Hot Zone Sports. Remember, our show is wherever you get your podcasts: Apple, Spotify, YouTube. So if you could rate and review us, we would really appreciate it. If you're watching on YouTube, first off, congratulations. You found the best sports page on YouTube. Secondly, subscribe to the show and then hit the notification button so you'll always know when our content drops. And wherever you like to social media, we are there. That's right. You can find us at Hot Zone Sports. Just look for the logo. Welcome to the Burn with Ryan Van Deaver, presented to you by Hot Zone Sports. The information you need to know, built with you in mind, for the people, by the people, and with the people. Join the Hot Zone Sports community today. Make sure you like the videos, subscribe, and share it with your friends. Now, let's get on to this episode. We have a special guest today. It is the member of the Horseshoe Mob podcast, and we are going to talk about the Colts. We're going to talk about the aftermath of what happened on Wednesday when Shane Steichen presented Anthony Richardson becoming the new QB1. Thank you, Lord. We are also going to dive into the Colts-Jets game. We're going to give you our predictions and our 4 top players to look out for. And on the rest of the episode, we will be touching on the college football playoff. The new rankings were released a few days ago, so we are going to touch on that. And boy, it is getting crazy. And then lastly, we're going to do a little bit of our college football preview. It wouldn't be Friday if we didn't do that. So, I hope you enjoy the episode. Boy, do we have a treat for you today. We have the Horseshoe Mob podcast in with us today. Thank you for joining us. Now, let's you introduce yourself to all of our very loyal viewers.
Good, everybody. My name is Josh Senior, host of the Horseshoe Mob podcast. You can find us every Tuesday at 9:30 Eastern Time. Find us at Horseshoe_Mob, where we talk about the Colts, just like Ryan do every Tuesday. Unless some change on Tuesdays where we have to make some adjustments and reschedule for another date. But we mostly talk about the Colts. So yeah, check us out every Tuesday night.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us again. It is our pleasure to have you here, and let's get this episode rolling. So in this episode, we are going to be talking about the Colts. There's been a lot of movement this week, and it needs to be discussed. So my first question for all of the viewers, did the Colts actually have a choice in benching AR? Now, on Wednesday, we got a little bit of clarity from Shane Steichen, and he said, quote, "You got to go through the process every single day." And that's where it's at. He's a great person, phenomenal human being. Like I said, not ever losing faith or trust in him. We're going through the process right now, and that's where it's at. He said that on Monday. And so on Wednesday, he said, quote, "Classrooms, the walkthroughs, the practice, the weight room, all those little things just got to be at a higher standard." And so we got a little bit of clarity there. Yes, he was probably benched because he tapped out, right? That had a lot to do with it because that's never been done, not unless you were injured. But we got a little bit more clarity knowing that it was the little things. I think when they drafted Anthony Richardson, they expected Peyton Manning to be wearing a number 5 jersey. Being in the video room, being in the classrooms, walkthroughs, being on time, if not early. And you got to keep in mind that Anthony Richardson is 22 years old, and he went to the University of Florida. Now, was he held to that kind of accountability at the University of Florida? Probably not. So, there's another quote here where Steichen says that was discussed with him 2 weeks ago, and those were the conversations that took place. And over the last 2 weeks, he made strides in those areas, big time strides, becoming a pro's pro. By judging Steichen's comments on Wednesday, it was more about professionalism and dedication to his craft than his play, which makes it more understandable why he wanted to start Flacco over Richardson. Do I agree with that move? No, because this type of dedication can be taught while he's still playing. Now, the last quote I'm going to get into is Steichen said, it just shows that actually this was Richard. He said, it just shows that I'm willing to be a pro and I'm willing to sacrifice anything that I need to do for the team. I feel like the past few weeks has definitely opened my eyes and allowed me to do that and take a deeper dive into myself and see what I'm made of. I'm thankful for these past 2 weeks and low-key glad it happened. Now, in 6 games this season, Richardson, it's been well documented. He's a number 4 pick in the 2023 NFL draft. He has struggled. He's thrown 958 yards this season, 4 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, and his completion percentage has been well documented as well, with 44.4 completion percentage. Anthony Richardson is 6 months younger than Carson Beck. He's 3 days older than Cam Ward, 3 months older than Shedeur Sanders, and he started less games, college and NFL combined, than any of them. So what do you got, Josh?
I mean, it just shows that, he needs time. He don't have the reps. He didn't play a whole lot in college. That's what they drafted him for. They knew that he's going to be a project. They knew that he need to be developed. When they drafted him, Colts was their best situation to be in with the head coach that has done a lot from other previous quarterbacks, such as Jalen Hurts, who was an MVP candidate. Justin Herbert. He worked with Phillip Rivers. He coached multitude of different quarterbacks. I'm not gonna say quarterback whisperer, but he definitely had a hand in those development, those quarterbacks. But you thought that he'll bring that over to Indy when he drove his own quarterback, and Anthony Richardson with less time playing. Along with we always, like I said, been well documented for his injuries. He's kind of on a little bit of injury prone side, but for his plays, they knew that he was an athletic quarterback. They knew that like I said, 22 years old. They knew that he had the opportunity and the potential to grow as a good quarterback. He just need the time. He need to be on the field to get those reps, whether they're good reps or bad reps. They had to allow him to do that. A couple weeks ago, him being benched due to, like I said, tapping out. You never seen that. I had never seen anybody say, "Hey, I got to get out the game because I'm tired." I did all that running, which was a hell of a play. But it's, you tap out. I think it was like third down, second down, third down, and they had Joe Flacco come in and hand the ball off to JT, which was, I think, didn't gain anything, and they had to set up for a field goal.
Yep.
Which could have been Anthony Richardson. And I didn't like what he did. I feel like he should have just called a timeout. Should have maybe lied about something else instead of just saying, "Hey, I was just tired." Because what about the guys they're on the field with you? They're tired as well. Everybody's tired. Everybody has to prep as well as he does. And then the next week, here comes Shane Steichen coming out saying, "Hey, we're gonna go with the new quarterback moving forward," which was a shock to everybody across the league. Our own fan base, we didn't understand what was going on. Was it the tap out? Was it his play? Because he is completing 40-something%, which is the worst in the league right now, probably worse in history. And there's a lot of questions, to be had. And we got that yesterday on, like you said, got the clarity yesterday of what it was. Still don't know what that means, what he was saying, because most of the stuff he says is vague. He's trying to keep everything to his chest. He don't want to hurt his quarterback growth by saying, everything out to the public. But like I said, he's 22. He got room to grow. we expected him to have these growing pains. We wanted him to make mistakes because you learn from those mistakes.
Yep.
But it's just confusing why they change and then why they go back to that. So hopefully we see a different Anthony Richardson going forward. And I don't expect him to come out and throw 400 yards Sunday or average 400 yards, every game. I expect to see, some highs and lows from this kid because that's where they got him. That's why they got him. And I as a fan, I want to see that. And we talked before we got, going live. I would rather see the team do bad with a young quarterback than do it with a guy that won a Super Bowl, who should read defenses, but he didn't do that against the Bills. He threw a pick six the first play on offense. So,
yep.
Yeah, I definitely want to see, I'd rather see a young guy that's 22 that can improve at a young age.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't understand the whole situation, but honestly, I didn't think the Colts, after doing deep reflections myself, I didn't think the Colts had much of a choice. When your quarterback taps out on the field without being injured, we end up finding out later that it was a stamina type thing.
Yeah.
And if you don't make a move to your backup quarterback who has leadership and is a veteran in this league, 17 years in this league, is a damn near 40-year-old quarterback, like you could possibly lose your locker room because there were, we had multiple guys come out and say that they talked to Anthony Richardson about it. Because those guys in the locker room, especially the high-end type guys, they're going to be like, this is bullshit. That type of behavior is never going to be tolerated. And I think being away 2 weeks, I think he realized how much he messed up. And he realized how much he actually needs to step up as the franchise quarterback. But let's do a hypothetical here.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say they finish 7-10. Yeah, that's a stretch. Okay, I don't see a lot of games, and me as a Colts fan, as a Braves fan, Oklahoma City Thunder fan, I'm a realist. Okay, I'm gonna tell you guys exactly the way it is, how I see it.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, they finish the season 7-10, maybe 8-9. Do they fire Shane Steichen? No, you are not going to do that.
No.
This is his second year. So that's doubtful, even though the offense has been atrocious. Now, do they fire Chris Ballard? And I know all of Colts Nation listening wants this to happen. But guys, that's not going to happen. Because if that happens, the new GM is going to walk in here and he's not going to keep Steichen because this has been well documented decades that when a new GM comes in, they get rid of their head coach because they have no ties to them whatsoever. Because when the coach fails, the GM fails. So it's pretty obvious that
you're stuck with him.
That you're going to be stuck with him. He has no ties to him, just like he would have no ties to the quarterback who he didn't draft, Anthony Richardson. So let's say they do lose the rest of the way. What do you do with Anthony Richardson? He's obviously not going to have a freebie year like he had, being injured last season. So with the revolving door of quarterbacks that the Colts have seen over the past 8 to 9 years, are the Saints going to get tired of Derek Carr and the Colts spend a little bit extra money for a so-called backup or somebody that will compete with Anthony Richardson? If this type of scenario happens, things are going to get chaotic. But if Anthony Richardson ends up not doing well and staying stagnant the rest of the season, like things are going to get pretty messy in the front offices. Now, I did a little bit of research in a wild article that I came across, and I really want to get your opinion on this. Like, let's say Anthony Richardson doesn't improve his accuracy. Do they try him at tight end? Does he accept the position of tight end?
I doubt he'd change anything. We've seen that. Seen this with a guy named Tim Tebow. He won, I think he won a Heisman and won 2 national championships with Florida. The same school he went to. That's why he went to number 15 to pay homage as Tebow. Tim Tebow got drafted as a quarterback, and during training camp they asked him, about switching to maybe tight end. Mm-hmm. He didn't do that until a couple years ago when he signed with Jacksonville, and everybody asked him to change the tight end, and he did that, even though he didn't play it down with them. He finally changed after years and years and years of being away from football. I don't see that with Anthony Richardson because I think the guy still feel like he can be a quarterback and a good quarterback at that, and he's chasing greatness at that position. He wants to be like Tom Brady. I think that's one of his idols as well. Even though his game says he's a Cam Newton, a little more tight. Cam Newton meaning he can, he's athletic and he actually can spin the ball something like Cam Newton. Sometimes with too much heat. He's athletic and he can escape the pocket more like Lamar Jackson. That's why he said he was Cam Jackson coming into the league. I don't see him making that change to another position. I don't see it with him being a humble guy. Already doing the things like you said, making sacrifices, paying attention to detail to be able to get back on the field and start as QB1. I don't see him changing to another position after making all those sacrifices. It's just kind of hard to do. It's kind of the same scenario for us, firing a GM or firing a head coach who also drafted a quarterback. And it makes him look bad, have to draft a quarterback. He's supposed to be a project quarterback, and then you ask him to change position. They kind of putting their job on the line, asking him to change position because they're saying that he's a failed quarterback, and now we got to change his position. That's how I see it too as well.
See, I don't think that he's going to be changing positions. I mean, if anything, the last straw may be, let's say, he doesn't progress the rest of the season with his accuracy, and next season, say they don't bring in a high caliber backup quarterback, and he plays the entire season and he stays stagnant. Okay. At that point, they're going to be looking into drafting a quarterback. And I've been saying this all season long, and I've gotten laughed at and mocked at because of it. But Jim Irsay, in particular, has an affinity for the name Manning. And there's going to be a guy coming out next year or the year after, Arch Manning. And you haven't seen a lot from him, but what you have seen, granted, it wasn't against high caliber teams, is a good quarterback. He's got good downhill speed, and that could be another option. When they drafted Anthony Richardson, I said, we'll see what happens 3 years from now. But once again, Anthony Richardson is the youngest quarterback in the NFL right now. So we have to give him time. And I don't want any Colts fans coming out on Twitter on saying, see, I told you so, we should have started Flacco. The offense has been stagnant. These past 2 weeks has been the worst offense that I have seen this season. Like when you have Joe Flacco, a Super Bowl winning quarterback, throwing 3 picks and getting a sack fumble, like you can't come back from that. If he doesn't throw that pick 6 in the first play of their offensive series, it's a 23-20 game. And it's a winnable game.
Correct.
And that's against Josh Allen, who, they gained a lot of yards during that game, but the Colts defense came to play, and they played like a top 10 defense, getting all the turnovers they did. Like, you can't tell me that Anthony Richardson wouldn't have done any better. If anything, he wouldn't have gotten sacked as many times as Joe Flacco because Joe Flacco's just a statue sitting back there.
Yes. Yeah. And that's the problem. That's the problem we're having. You have a guy that, being a statue sitting in the pocket, eating 3 or 4 sacks a game, whereas you got a young kid that probably take half of those, maybe 2 sacks, maybe, depending on, where the coverage, the pressure is coming from, which, mind you, AR is being pressured a lot more than Flacco is. When he was starting, they are pressuring AR a whole lot. He's probably the most, besides I think maybe C.J. Stroud, he's probably the most pressured quarterback in the league at a young age, and he's probably just trying to adjust to that but he can escape the pocket during those pressures.
And one thing I am pretty worried about for this upcoming game is you saw last week we were starting 3 rookie offensive linemen, and that probably had a lot to do with the pressure that was affecting Flacco. But I will reiterate this many times over. I will say Anthony Richardson is a mobile quarterback, and he can get around that pressure. He can step up in the pocket. There are plenty of plays that they can run to get him outside of the pocket. So the Jets defense, we're going to be playing on Sunday. Kickoff's going to be set for 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 12 p.m. Central Standard Time if you are in my area. And this game, it got outflexed from, it was like a 7 p.m. game. I think it was supposed to be on Sunday Night Football, and it got flexed out. Obviously, nobody expected the Jets to be playing as bad as they were, but the Jets are favored to win this game. I get it. You're playing back in New York, but the big issue is you're basically having 2 offenses that are struggling to string any drives together. The Jets played the Cardinals, who just beat the living bloody hell out of them last week, and it's gonna be hard to determine, if the Colts can even come to play. There's gonna be a different game plan, obviously, with Anthony Richardson in there, but I just hope that 75% of the game plan is not running plays for Anthony Richardson, because I do not want to see him getting injured the first time back.
I do agree with that. I don't like that feel they have. That feel is horrible. A lot of quarterbacks, a lot of players have gotten hurt on that field. Concussions, bad injuries from hamstrings and ankle sprains, and even they quarterback got hurt last year from that same field. Like you said, and it's just bad having both offenses playing bad. No matter who's the quarterback, at least the quarterback having AR in there makes the run game a lot better, which was a lot better last week compared to the previous week against the Vikings. It wasn't, but it helps with the RPOs. It helps with design runs for our quarterback, and I don't want to see him throw the ball 30 times. That's not his game. Maybe 25, 25 passes to maybe 15 runs. I think it should be suitable for this game, win or lose. I mean, I prefer win because I'm a fan, but I don't want to see him. I don't want to see him airing it out like he's a passing quarterback. That is not his game. Allow him to be more balanced, with the passes and the runs, and then the way you can set up the run with JT. You can set up the pass with your elite receivers, and not elite across the league, but elite in your offense, such as Josh Downs, Alec Pierce. We got word with Michael Pittman Jr. is a full participant, which is. Let me talk about that. Michael Pittman was out last week. I don't know if he's out because he didn't want to play with the quarterback, because he's been playing through the same injury since it was known that he had a back injury and that he's going to play through it the whole season. At first, they thought that he was going to be on IR for 4 weeks, and he ended up playing those 4 weeks that he would have been out. Now he's full participant as of yesterday. What today is? Yeah, as of yesterday. He's full participant in practice. After they named a new, went back to the quarterback, starting quarterback. It just conspiracy theory that I have that maybe he wanted to play with AR. He did not want to play with Flacco because he's probably not going to get the targets. But what you think about that? I know I'm kind of shifting the conversation, but that was surprising.
I'm going to start with what you said about the run game. One of my biggest issues with the Colts this season is their run game. Okay, so I said on the podcast a couple days ago that he had Anthony Taylor had 114 yards rushing, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you take out 58 of those yards for that long rush, that he had, he was averaging 3 yards per carry.
Mm-hmm.
That's a problem, okay? And it's not just because of your offensive line. Um, a lot had to do with the passing game. It used to be in the NFL where, if you had a good running game, that opened up the passing game. It's
Right.
flipped. If you have a good passing game, then you're going to have a good running game. But the
Yeah.
biggest problem with Flacco being in there is he's a statue sitting back there. That's not helping out Taylor whatsoever. Now, with Anthony Richardson coming back into the lineup, that's going to help out Taylor tremendously because now you have the added effect. Okay, we got to watch out for this quarterback's legs, not just his passing. And so it's going to add a little bit more depth into the running game.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and talking about the Pittman injury, I have no proof of this, but and this is going to sound a little bit abrasive, but that's that's who I am. I don't throw sugar on top sometimes. There is no way that you are going to be fully healed from 1 week to the next from a back injury. No way at all. And that is a massive problem. Like, was Steichen cool with that? Was he faking the injury with the athletic director? Like, what was really going on in this instance? Because from all I read about the back injury, like, it's a serious thing, and you're standing on the sidelines all giggly, like, that's hilarious, guys, and you're just chilling while your team is getting the snot kicked out of them. That's a bad look, especially after you just got paid. Didn't like it.
It could be a lot of things that's going on to his. I won't say downfall, but his being inconsistent this season. Could be I'm signing not signing, drafting Eddie Mitchell, which we thought could help him because he needs the other weapons. He can't do it by himself. Ashton Dillon is not a threat.
Yeah.
He's a playmaker, but not a threat. Josh Downs is a playmaker and a threat. Adam Pierce is a playmaker. He's somewhat becoming a threat. Then you add Eddie Mitchell, who has not had the biggest game yet until last week. He had 6 catches for 71 yards. That's a major boost for the offense. It's just that maybe Pittman didn't think they would be able to draft another receiver after he getting paid. Maybe, you don't know what mentally goes on through his mind when they did that, which he did. He spoke highly of him when he was drafted. He's like, I like A.D. Mitchell, and he spoke highly of his game. It's not translating on the field that you're not consistently performing as a pro. You got the C on your chest. You're the captain of the receivers. You're the other coach for Reggie Wayne. You're supposed to help these guys. You're supposed to lead the guys on the field every Sunday. Like you said, him sitting out, could be, wanting to heal another week because him playing. The more he played with this serious injury, he just probably adding more, risk to him getting, further injuries and hurting the team in the long run after getting paid. So I guess maybe sitting out that 1 week. Where they felt the team probably wasn't going to win because I had us losing last week. I didn't think we was going to win that game, and it showed on Sunday. Maybe felt like, what, why not heal this week, instead of healing for 4 weeks when they offered it to him.
I for one want to know what this. I want to know more details about this injury because he got injured in the Vikings game, so that was November 3rd. So let's say 11 days ago. We're actually 10 days ago. Back injury, 10 days. All right, Michael Pittman. But the problem is, if you get re-injured, this is going to quickly become a you problem because, I mean, you got 30 receptions this season, and I'm just letting you know. I hope you listen to this podcast because you got some competition now. A.D. Mitchell had the best game he's had as a Colt last week. And then you have Josh Downs, who is elevating himself. He's getting closer to superstar status. All right. So you could possibly have 2 number ones right there, and you could be traded eventually. I'm not saying it's going to happen next week or next year, but this is This is the way the NFL works. It's a business now. And so I don't know. I haven't been that impressed with Michael Pittman that much this season because I believe he just has 2 touchdowns. And I mean, the Colts themselves have struggled most of the season getting touchdowns to begin with, but we won't really get into that. Well, let's get into this New York Jets Colts matchup. Both teams, not the greatest of records. The Jets are 3-7. They've lost 6 of their last 7 games.
Mm-hmm.
But, just like the Colts, scoring points this season has been a challenge. So they have that in common. The Jets scored 20 or more points in 4 of their last 10 games and are averaging 17.7 points per game. Yeah, let's flip the script. Indianapolis. They've been challenged in the same respect offensively. And that change at quarterback, we don't know what kind of effect it's going to have. It will affect the run game for sure. The Colts, on the other hand, they're averaging 20.8 points per game entering this contest. Yeah, I will say, who are your 4 players to watch out for in this matchup, Josh?
I probably do. I mean, maybe do 3 on offense and maybe 1 on defense. But definitely watch out the quarterback. He's seemed like he's highly motivated to be back in lineup. Also, JT, because of the Jets' rush defense is pretty bad. Since they had changing of the head coaches, Josh Downs still. I mean, he's going to be needed because you definitely want to test out Sauce Gardner consistently, as I think you mentioned or will mention his percentage as being targeted from the quarterbacks. And I don't think our young quarterback should be targeting him a lot because what can happen when Sauce Gardner gets the ball. So Josh Downs would be needed in more certain slots. And then the 4th guy, I think that can make an impact on the defensive side is our guy that we drafted at 15, number 97, Laius Salatu. I think he's due for another game where I think it's the Bears where he had a huge impact. I feel like he would do that against a statue at quarterback with the Jets. Aaron Rodgers is not the same guy that we saw with the Packers by no chance. He is a lot older. He's 41. Yes, they did trade it for Devontae Adams, but it has not worked out right now. I think they only won 1 game since they got him. And they're not in sync. There's no chemistry there still. The team's still losing. I don't know what's wrong with the offense. They went to, is it Ty Downing? Yeah, they probably Ty Downing. And they have, is it Nate? What's the guy? Nathaniel? It's the
Hackett.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's just explain everything for you. They got the guys for the quarterback, Nathaniel, because that's the guy that was with him with Green Bay, who got fired after being the head coach as the Broncos. They brought him to the Jets to help him out, and yet they're still having struggles at scoring points on their offense. But I think Latu can have an impact with that. If Gus Bradley, who's not a fan favorite, if he's able to get those blitzes or some pressures, get to Aaron Rodgers, I think Latu can get to the quarterback and have a huge impact in this game and decide on how this game would go.
You must have been spying on my browser because we got pretty much the same thing here. Anthony Richardson, I am going to be fully in tune into everything, and I'm probably going to go a little bit overboard. Look at YouTube, see if I can find some sky coverage to be able to see the full field because I hate how the TVs are set up to where you only see the offense. Like, I want to see the expanded field. But anyway, get off my soapbox here. Anthony Richardson, I want to see if he's actually improved, even marginally, with his time off. I want to see how he leads his team down the field. I want to see how he leads a huddle. I want to see all of this. because now that it's out in the open that his leadership was kind of lacking. I want to see a little bit more now that I know what I'm looking for, because we're not inside that building. We don't really know what's being held back from the media and whatnot. But yeah, I definitely want to see everything from Anthony Richardson. And to combine that with the coaching, I want to see the offensive playbook be opened up. All right. You're not a playoff team. Open up the playbook. Show us what you got. That's what we're looking for. And if it leads to interceptions, okay. Now, when I go to my job, yes, I'm not a full-time podcaster, guys. When I go to my job and I screw something up, I want to learn something from it. I find a way to use corrective action and fix it, right? Just like Anthony Richardson on the football field. And that's what all of us fans just want to see is progression. Are you learning from your mistakes, or are you just going to repeat the same mistakes over and over? Now, the second guy is Jonathan Taylor. He's had his ups and downs this season, but his production has really been up as of late. He's been breaking more runs. He's rushed for 105 yards in 3 of the last 5 games, including the 114-yard performance against Buffalo. He's also scored 4 touchdowns in his last 5 games. So if there's anything you can expect, you should expect a heavy dose of Jonathan Taylor. What I don't want to see from the Colts is them giving him 15 carries in the first half and 5 in the second half. You need to continue to feed him. Just like Zeke said from the Dallas Cowboys in his rookie season, feed me more. You need to feed Jonathan Taylor more. There's a reason why you signed him to that large contract, and it's not to block for Anthony Richardson all the time in the second half. My third guy is going to be Josh Downs. Now, last year, he was a 3rd-round pick. Now, we didn't expect that much from him. As a rookie wide receiver, he's not going to be like Malik Neighbors or anything like that. He wasn't a high-value pick. The Colts obviously knew what they were doing when they selected him. And, in the past few games for Indianapolis, he's finished with 7 catches for 72 yards against Buffalo. His stock is continuing to rise. If you are a fantasy football player and he isn't rostered, you better go grab his ass right now because he is crispy. He also had a 109-yard performance against Houston 3 weeks ago. So keep an eye on him. He does all of the little things on offense in that slot. And between him and A.D. Mitchell, you might have one hell of a tandem growing in Indianapolis. Now, there's going to be one last thing that I want to talk about, and that is Alec Pierce going up against Sauce Gardner. Now, a lot of people may not know, but Alec Pierce and Sauce Gardner were teammates at Cincinnati Bearcats. Okay? So we already know there's going to be a nice little agitation, irritation, push and go back and forth. One guy is going to one up the other. Sauce Gardner, he likes to get on Instagram, but in this game, he's going to be on Alec Pierce in press coverage. And Alec Pierce in press coverage, he averages 21 yards per reception against press coverage, which is the second highest clip in the NFL. Sauce Gardner against press coverage, he's held opposing quarterbacks to a 46.1 passer rating when targeted in pass coverage. That is the second lowest in the NFL since 2022.
Yeah, that's impressive. Some got to give. Some have to give. Like I said, I don't want us to continue trying on the field. Keep trying to force it down the field because only thing can happen is bad. The more you put the ball in the air, you give the defense more opportunity to take away from it, take it away. Mm-hmm. And he's the guy that you don't want to keep, you don't want to pick on. Because now, I will say this. He do have an issue with, his, grabbing the receivers. He does grab the receivers down the field with penalties. He does has that issue. Will that occur on Sunday? Yet to be seen. We don't know. And facing, Alec Pierce is probably, no, not to down Alec Pierce, probably it'd be easier test for him unless he have maybe a guy like, if Mike Pittman is healthy, a guy like Mike Pittman Jr. give him fits. Mike Pittman not the deep threat as Alec Pierce is, but we definitely want to mix and match those schemes up to where it's not just him facing Sauce is just facing one player, one receiver the entire time. It definitely helps because the other receiver, other cornerback, I think is maybe a rookie or is not as good as Sauce Gardner. You definitely want to try to pick on him. If it's A.D. Mitchell, if it's Josh Downs, or if it's whoever it is on the offense who's on that side of the field, you definitely want to take those opportunities and don't be scared to face Sauce Gardner. Like I said, he will have a pass interference. He will do that. He will have a holding. That's his game too. He's going to cost the Jets some first downs that we can play a part in that. So something got to give. Like you said, Alec Pierce is averaging that 20 clip, 20 yards a clip. That's impressive. And like you said, with Sauce, only allowing quarterbacks 40%. Something has to give on at the end. It's just who wins that matchup. Like I said, teammates, friends. It's gonna be trash talking probably. It's gonna be Alec Pierce don't trash talk a lot, but they're friends. They're probably gonna do it on Sunday in New York. I don't like that matchup. Those two. Simple reason because that's pretty much Alec Pierce's only offense is just a deep threat.
Yep.
If he was more so of he can do more in the offense for his route running, I would love it more. But just us just chunking it downfield the entire time, I'm not okay with that. I'm not. I don't like that matchup because, like I said, you're putting the ball in harm's way when they got nice safeties. I think it's Reed. Reed is number 4.
Yeah.
Reed, he's talented. He's probably going to be waiting for that as well. They're going to scheme for Alec Pierce in that deep threat. That's why it's important for Josh Downs to be in the intermediate routes underneath. Use him a lot in those routes to open up those offense to where we can somewhat catch Sauce off guard. And that Alec Pierce is somewhat open to get that 20 yards or more catch.
Yeah.
But it's gonna be interesting to see what's gonna happen on Sunday, and I'm excited. I'm intrigued to see that. To see who win that battle. I know a lot of folks are gonna say, Sauce is he's gonna own this battle. But I like our guy. I'm a Colts fan. I'm not a homer, but I like our guy as well. I like all our guys gonna go in there and battle on Sunday. I think everybody has been prepared to fight and battle for their quarterback now that he's back in lineup. Everybody, it seems like everybody has, from compared to Sunday and Monday, everybody seemed like they're excited. Like they're ready to go out and fight for the team and for their quarterback. A lot of things have been exposed from Kenny Moore, Quinn Nelson, Julian Blackman. They said their things, their take on the team and the players are not prepping and not doing the things that help this team win because we're losing close games by 7, 10, 8. We're losing, not even 10 points. We're losing by one score. It's like 1 or 2 scores, it seems like. And it's just not getting over the hump on that. You take away some of those losses we had, there are easy wins. We're easily maybe a 6-14 team instead of 4-6 or 6-3. But we just got to get over those hump. And this is a team that we can, I won't say get right and win a game, but it's a team that we have an opportunity to beat because they have the same struggles as we do. And that's probably why they flex it till 1 o'clock instead of seeing all of us go to sleep at 7 p.m. Watching 2 teams that are suck in offense, but talented on defense.
Yeah, my prediction for this game is going to be 21-17 Colts. I think the Colts are going to do just enough to get the job done, get back on track, and then be able to focus on the Lions. Not sure if I'm going to watch the Lions game because that could be one of the worst catastrophes of the year. It might be like the Notre Dame Florida State game, 52-3. I don't know, because
The Lions can put up points.
we're not going to get into the Lions
Yeah.
right now, because man, we could just keep talking about it. But what's your prediction for the game, Josh?
If you know if anybody watched the episode on yesterday, I feel a lot confident now than I did before. I had us losing with Joe Flacco. Uh, Rightfully so with their offense, not offense, their D line with Hassan Reddick back in the lineup. He seemed like he's back in the groove. I wasn't prepared to see our quarterback get sacked 40 times. No, not 40 times. 4 times again. With Flacco starting. Now that they announced that you have another change in quarterback. I now feel like we can win this game, and I got us winning. I think it was like 27-14. I was winning another close game because all our games seem to be, all our wins are close, all our losses are close. So I want to keep that theme going. Is that we're gonna win a close game in New York.
All right, we will have to see how that ends.
No,
And
I'm sorry. Correction. I had 24-17. 24-7.
okay, see, I was thinking 24, but I'm not sold on the Colts offense scoring 24 points. I can go 21.
It's close enough to the average. Average you said 20. You said 20, having 20 points. So I just give it 4 more points. Give or take.
Well, I want to thank Josh from Horseshoe Mob Podcast for joining me for this episode. It has been an absolute pleasure. And anytime you want to come back on here and just let me know, brother.
Well, I want to say also it's a pleasure being on here. I mean, not it's not every day that you get a fan reaching out that are same as you. We watch the same team. We just have different takes of our team, but we support the same. The Horseshoe, the We Bleed Blue, such as the guy that's singing that song every week, which is hey.
Oh.
Hey, it helped them get fan of the year. So I mean, I guess whatever it takes to get that accolade, that you're going to sing a song with no rhythm, and it's whatever. Shout out to him for doing that, but I know it's kind of annoying for some fans, including myself. But he made a name for himself. He's on TV. He's on Pat McAfee's show. He was, he's in the office in the building. I mean, he's in the building with the Colts, and they gave him, fan of the year, so he got to meet players. I mean, I guess
tickets to the Super Bowl.
I mean, you got tickets to the Super Bowl, so I mean, not every day.
Say, we're right here.
Right.
We have more talent. We'd like to go to the Super Bowl too.
Especially you don't. I mean, the Colts not going, but to go to the Super Bowl to watch any team, it doesn't even matter. At this point, I think the guy work at McDonald's. And if it is true, for a guy, a kid to work at McDonald's and have Super Bowl tickets, that's kudos to the organization for doing that. A guy take his time, out of his time to make a video each week, hype video for some fans. Others is annoying, but it paid off for him. So I definitely shout out to him for putting in that work, whether we like it or not. He did it. I wish some things I wish I can get lucky like that. I'm not going to sing on this podcast each week, but I hope one day that what I'm doing does lead to something greater, which is meeting or meeting the players on a practice field like the guy did. So I'm proud of him.
I mean, Hot Zone Sports is always looking for the latest, greatest jingle. So, Josh, man, just send me what you got, and we'll work with it. All right.
I got
you. But that is going to be it for the Colts talk, and I hope everybody enjoys the game on Sunday. And I will be posting about it on all of our socials. So go ahead and go follow Horseshoe Mob Podcast. Subscribe to them on YouTube. And if you are new here and you've not subscribed to Hot Zone Sports, what are you doing? Jump on it and join Hot Zone Sports Nation. We're posting the latest, greatest content on everything sports, not just Colts. But if you are a new Colts fan coming to this channel, just know we are going to be posting a lot more about the Colts every week. And we might even have a little surprise for you in the future. So, thank you, Josh, for joining us.
Thank you.
And I hope everybody has a great weekend. The college football reaction to these rankings. So as we get into the college football rankings, I'm good with the top two. Oregon at number 1, Ohio State at number 2, but Texas at number 3 and Penn State at number 4. You could easily flip-flop, strictly based off their strength of schedule. Texas hasn't beaten any team in the top 25, and they lost by 2 touchdowns to Georgia. During that game, the defense of the Bulldogs was healthy and really got after Quinn Ewers. But fast forward to now, Georgia just pretty much got blown out by Ole Miss. And then you got Penn State, who the best thing on the resume is a close loss to Ohio State. They struggled with Bowling Green and don't have much else on their resume. I have a hard time believing that this is the 4th best team in the country. But who else in reality could be at number 4? You could make a case for number 6 BYU strictly off of their resume. Yeah, they had a close game against Utah. And you could even argue that they shouldn't have won that game. Yeah, holding calls are apparent. Then Tennessee could be a possibility, sitting at number 7. They have a really good defense and a legitimate threat at running back. But a lot of these teams, you have to go off of the eye test and not just their records. Texas, for instance, yes, they knocked around a Michigan team that has NFL players on their defense, but they're basically a 6-6 team that they manhandled. I mean, they beat Vanderbilt, who was having a solid year. They beat them by 3 points. But other than that, I don't know how you can look at Texas and say this win in particular is why they're at number 3. But like Indiana hasn't really played anyone until Michigan. Yes, they struggled a bit, but still got that win. They really had their hands full with the Wolverines. They played their best half of football in that game. Michigan did. It's all going to come down to Ohio State next week. That is the bar they will be measured off of. If they beat Ohio State, then they will go to Indianapolis and play Oregon. Even if they lose to the Ducks, they're going to get into the college football playoff as an 11-1 team. But in reality, if they have a close loss to the Buckeyes at Ohio State, because let's not get it twisted. This is a tough place to play. So let's say they do lose. They'll be 11-1. Would an 11-1 with no great wins be enough to get into the playoff? I'll say yeah. As it stands right now, you'd have number 9 Notre Dame go to number 8 Tennessee, number 12 Boise State go to Ohio State. Wow. Number 11 Ole Miss go to Penn State. Imagine that whiteout. And number 10 Alabama go to number 7 Indiana in the first round. If all the conference champions win like Oregon, Miami, BYU, and Texas, they would all have byes. The question here is, would the committee knock out a BYU team if they lost to Colorado in the Big 12 championship? Or would they keep BYU as an at-large team? For BYU, it would be really difficult to keep them out of the playoffs at 12-1. They have 2 really good wins right now, beating Kansas State and SMU. The biggest issue with BYU is that they were predicted to finish 13th in the Big 12 conference, and so it's a respect factor at this point, much like Indiana. You can make a point that Boise State should be ranked higher. Their only loss this season was against the number 1 ranked team in all of the land, Oregon. A loss by 3 points. And they beat a team in Washington State, 8-1, ranked number 13. Sneer all you want at Washington State, but they have a really good quarterback in John Mateer, and they beat them by 21 points. Washington State is ranked higher than any team Texas has beaten. But to push back, I know that people will say that Boise State had their hand full with Nevada, but in reality, so did SMU, who is still undefeated. But Boise State went to Oregon and also pulled off one hell of an upset. So that's nothing to glance over. Georgia, on the other hand, has their work ahead of them if they expect to be in the college football playoff. They have Tennessee this weekend. If they win, they could get back up at a minimum to the top 8. They're number 12 right now. But if they win out, they could be 10-2, and there are plenty of scenarios where they could make it to the college football playoff. You also need to watch out for Alabama because they have some high-quality wins. They bludgeoned LSU and Missouri, beat South Carolina and Georgia. So if Georgia slips this weekend, Alabama could be moving up. The Big Ten. The Big Ten could very well end up getting 4 teams into the college football playoff. Yeah. Let's say Ohio State bludgeons Indiana. The Hoosiers are still getting in with an 11-1 record. Penn State isn't going to lose the rest of the season unless something catastrophic happens with Purdue, who the Buckeyes just ran. You got Minnesota and Maryland, plus not having to play in the Big Ten championship. So that's an added bonus to the old win-loss record. But Ole Miss is a team I have that other teams do not want to play. They have really bad teams left on their schedule with Florida and Mississippi State. So they'll walk out of that 10-2. So how do they get in? Texas is playing Texas A&M on November 30th. If A&M beats Texas, then the Longhorns will be 10-2 with no top 25 wins under their belt. Now, an important question in this scenario. Would a team like this be left out of the college football playoff? There's going to be a 10-2 SEC team that will be left out of the playoff. We've had 2 college football playoff rankings so far, and the committee has been all over the place. Their parameters, I don't think, exist. They have changed week by week so far. Yes, there's only been 2 weeks. I think the eyeball test has to come into play rather than strength of schedule and RPI. I don't look at Texas right now like they're a powerhouse team. I just don't. If they would have beat Georgia, maybe things would be different in that regard. But that's not how things played out. But if Texas A&M were to beat Texas, then they would both be 10-2, and the Aggies would have the head-to-head win and would likely knock out the Longhorns. Something I'm sure every Aggies fan is drooling over. There are a lot of what-if scenarios that we can roll around right now. It's just a great time to be a college football fan. Things will be a little bit more iced over come the first week of December. But for now, we get to play around with these scenarios, and boy, are there a lot. Another team is Miami. If they lose again, then they're more than likely out with that loss to Georgia Tech last weekend. They only have 1 win worth anything, and that's Louisville on the road. So it's not a glaring great win of note. Another wild scenario would be Army. I have to discuss them. I don't know about all of you, but Army making the college football playoff would be monumental. I guess maybe I'm playing favorites because I was in the Army, but we won't glance over that. The only way I see it happening is if they beat Notre Dame. They have to beat them. Meaning the Irish would be out. But it would come down to an Army-Boise State discussion. Army is a no portal, no NIL, grinded out type of team. Ground game, great defense. Just imagine them in the college football playoff. What if they go 12-0 and they get left out? Will there be any screams for Army like there was Florida State last year? It's a valid question. Thoughts, lots of thoughts. Army, Notre Dame would feel like another one on those elimination games. But keep in mind, Navy was undefeated and the Irish ran right through them like they were nothing. Now let's go and move on to the college football preview. Boy, we got some good games. And I picked 4 of my favorite games of the weekend. We're going to start off with Utah versus Colorado. This is a very interesting game to me. Colorado is coming off a victory over Texas Tech, a hard-fought victory at that, and Utah is coming off of a devastating loss against BYU, a controversial loss to say the least. So you have to wonder what kind of mindset Utah is going to be in walking into this game. So you have Utah that started the season as a preseason number 1, and the Big 12 expected to win the entire conference, and by many experts' predictions, they were expected to win it with ease. So they are stumbling into this game. While Colorado didn't have much of a shot to even contend in the Big 12 this year, they are now setting themselves up to win out and contend for the Big 12 championship with BYU. Say what you want about Colorado. I know there's a lot of haters. I know there's a lot of lovers. Whatever it is. But it has been an amazing coaching job by Deion Sanders to get this team to this point, to this position. So my hat goes off to him. I'm not going to take my hat off. You understand. But if there's one thing that Kyle Whittingham does is respond to adversity. He's a tough, gritty coach, and I expect his team to come in and compete at the highest levels against Colorado because players emulate their coaches. And if you got a tough, gritty coach, that is how your team is going to play. So Isaac Wilson, a true freshman, is going to be starting at quarterback for the Utes. Fun fact, Isaac Wilson is Zach Wilson's brother. He has played in 5 games and has been turnover prone in those games with 8 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. The Utes are led offensively by Mekhi Bernard. If you know anything about Utah, it's the fact that they, over the past few years, have had a really solid running game. And that does not change this season. He's a really good downhill runner, tough. In Colorado, if you watch that Kansas State game, they really struggled with stopping the run. So in that regard, that is something you tell is going. So in that regard, that is something the Utes are going to have to take advantage of in this game. But Colorado's defensive line is highly improved. Last week, they had 7 sacks and 3 takeaways. If anybody has an advantage on either side of the ball, I think Colorado is going to have an advantage when it comes to their defensive front, and Utah is going to have a hard time dealing with the possible sacks, pressures, all that. But on the flip side of this, Utah's defense isn't that bad at all. They are finally getting healthy, and they still lead the Big 12 in scoring and total defense. Colorado has won 3 straight and controlled their own destiny. That has been talked about to exhaustion. I know. To get into that Big 12 championship and to get into the college football playoff. They lead the Big 12 in scoring. So that's right. It's going to come down to the best scoring offense versus the best scoring defense of the Big 12. Strength versus strength. But something that probably needs to be talked about is the fact that wide receiver Jimmy Horn is day-to-day. And I know that's the Buffaloes. They have a lot of depth at wide receiver. But Jimmy Horn is a really fast, great route runner, so that could affect the game as well. We will have to see how this ends, but this is going to be a good game to watch if you are bored around noontime on Saturday. Number 7, Tennessee goes on the road to Athens to face number 12, Georgia. Georgia is a 10.5-point favorite in this game. That is a bit ridiculous to me. Tennessee is going to definitely cover in this game. That is way too high of a line and just slapped me right in the face when I saw it. That is insanity. Who is betting on this game to drive it that high? Holy cow. If I said it once, I said it 1,000 times. There's not going to be a 3-loss team that is going to get into the college football playoff. Well, maybe there will be one team I can see doing this, and it would be Georgia because of the wins that they have. They would be the only team to be able to accomplish this. But fam, this is a narrow, winding road they are on here. But for intents and purposes, let's just go ahead and dive into this game for a little bit. Nico Iamaleava has been in concussion protocol, but good news, Vols fans, he was able to practice this week. So saying that Nico is likely to play against Georgia this weekend. So when was the last time Georgia felt doubted by the nation? That was when they had to play Texas. And what happened in that game? Georgia came up on top. It was a dominating effort. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen here, but it's a possibility. Maybe that is why they're 10.5-point favorite in this game. I don't think there's any doubt in my mind. They have not lost back-to-back regular season games since 2016. Do we really think that they're going to lose back-to-back now? The crazy thing is Carson Beck has turned it over a whopping 14 times in his last 6 games. That means he's turned the ball over more than anybody in college football. That is mind-boggling to me. But whatever needs to be done has to be done because Georgia has no room for error when it comes to making it to the college football playoff. They won't be able to lean on the run in this game because the front 7 for Tennessee is just too stout. They are really good in that area. But seriously, Georgia is ranked 50th in offense and have the most drops in the SEC. Georgia has some issues. We can't just glance over it like it's nothing. Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey aren't going to be walking through those doors on Saturday to fix these problems. Georgia is going to be up against it, against Tennessee. The Vols are a top 5 defense, a top 5 scoring defense. They haven't allowed 20 points in a game this season up to this point. The Tennessee running game is going to be successful. But Georgia has won 28 straight at home, and they still have one of the best coaches in America in Kirby Smart. Kansas versus BYU. Took a while for the Kansas Jayhawks to hit their stride this season, but they are officially playing like a team that everyone expected them to play like in the beginning of the season. Everybody was talking about Kansas, how they would be a team that is going to be a force to be reckoned with in the Big 12. They were going to be one of the top teams in the Big 12. But until recently, they hadn't showed any type of potential. They were just slumming it game through game. Now Jalen Daniels has come on and controlled the turnovers and has made the Jayhawks into a very dangerous team. Before the turnovers were controlled, quarterback play was preventing the team from winning these close games. Jalen Daniels alone had 10 turnovers in 5 games. But recently, he had only 2 turnovers in the past 4 games. This team isn't going to be going to the Big 12 championship game or the college football playoff. So you know what that means. In this game, they're going to be looked at to be played as spoiler to BYU. This game is strictly going to come down to Jalen Daniels and his ball security. The Jayhawks go as he goes. If he is turning the ball over, then the Jayhawks are not going to have a chance in beating BYU. If Jalen Daniels doesn't turn the ball over in those close losses, you're more than likely looking at wins in those games and a top team in the nation, at least in the top 25. This is probably the best team with a 3-6 record in the nation. I mean, they took it to Iowa State last week and beat them pretty decisively, putting a 45 spot on them. So in reality, if we see BYU going through the motions, they had an emotional win against a rival last week, and the Jayhawks play like they did last week, then this is upset central and a perfect spot for a letdown game. This is the continuing trend in college football. You will have a close, emotional rivalry game. And then the next week, you aren't running like the finely tuned engine that you should be, and that could quite possibly be this game. In my opinion, this game is going to be ridiculously close. And don't glance over the run game for KU. Devin Neal is a dude. But when you look at BYU, they just look like a team of destiny at this point. They pulled out a win over Utah. I just think BYU will find a way to win this game. It'll be close, but they're going to pull it out. They looked completely dead in that game, and they won the game at Utah in a rivalry game. KU could win this game, but I'm taking the Cougs in a Big 12 title race between Arizona State and Kansas State. The Sun Devils have been one of the biggest surprises in college football, and they are off a win at home without their best player, running back Cam Scudabo. Arizona State has improved under head coach Kenny Dillingham. Can the team boast another upset win against Kansas State? Cam Scudabo may be the best running back in the Big 12. He's definitely in the mix for first team all Big 12 honors. He's a workhorse and an every down back. The least amount of carries he has in every game this season has been 11 in week 1. He has been given the ball 33 times versus Mississippi State after losing to Houston 2 weeks ago. Kansas State has responded, especially the offensive line. K-State offensive coordinator and offensive line coach Connor Riley has been pleased with how his unit went about their business since the disappointment. The Wildcats fell short when they were not physical enough in Houston, even though the conditions required it. When that happens, it is easy for the offensive line to take it personal. But we don't know the full answer until they get back on the field and get back into the trenches this week against Arizona State. I believe this game is going to come down to how the Arizona State defense is going to attack the Wildcats offense. The Wildcats found out from Houston and from BYU when they load the box and then they bring a couple of outside blitzers. K-State has a more difficult time of getting any ground game going. And ground game is where Kansas State makes their money. Who can stay alive? And so if they can emulate what Houston did in their last game against Kansas State, this is going to be a tough afternoon for Kansas State because of one fact. Avery Johnson is progressing as a passer, but he's not quite there. And if he is fully relied on to be an efficient passer, it's going to be a long day for Kansas State. I personally think that Kansas State is going to pull out this game because it is at Bill Snyder Family Stadium in Manhattan, the Little Apple. But it is going to be closer than many experts think it's going to be. I think the Wildcats are going to win in a 30-27 game. It's going to be very close. It's going to be a grinded out type game. And the biggest factor that's going to come into this game is adjustments. Kansas State has to be able to adjust throughout the game. If they don't, going to take that L. That is going to be it for this episode of The Burn. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. If you have any questions, comments, something you want me to talk about in the next episode, hey, just send me a DM. I am on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. But thank you for tuning in today and making me your first listen of the day. Follow us on all social media platforms at Hot Zone Sports. And join the sports pages that is meant for you, because this is truly why we do this, for the people. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, click that notification button, and have a blessed weekend. We will see you on Monday. Peace.